Welcome to the Grasshoppers Club. We're a new YouTube channel here. This is Ariel, I'm Fauzi, and Ariel's from Singapore. I'm from Australia, but we're both living in Singapore. And we met a little while ago, and we sort of talk a lot, and we both into tech a little bit in our work backgrounds. And hey, we sort of said, hey, why not we have a bit of a chat online together and share some of
Mhm.
our stories and our differences in regards to Singapore and Australia and our lives. And anyone that's interested to sort of jump on board and listen in and watch our show, would definitely love for you to like and subscribe. Right, that's what you're supposed to do on YouTube, wherever that button is. Like and subscribe. And hey, look, today's obviously our first episode here. And Ariel had a interesting topic she wanted to start with after a bit of a debate. And I'm like, sure, why not? Let's go with this one here. So, Ariel, you'd like to talk about study or work first, hey? Is that it? Come on, tell me how you're gonna make this exciting, because that was my concern, right? I was like, this topic's probably a little bit boring, but hey, look, tell me how this is gonna be an exciting first topic for us to talk about.
Well, I guess it's kind of easier to start off with something close to your heart. So that's how like we started our conversation, right? When we first met, and then you touched down, you share a little bit about your background story, how you end up in Singapore, and then we were like sharing our experiences working in full time, and then also doing startup, and also doing freelance. So I thought that would be like something interesting to kick off because there are more than one options of like jobs, and then but then education is also kind of like one of the key essential that you will need to kind of chart first, like which one you want to start with and stuff. So I thought that would be like quite interesting to think about because I think time has changed. Like we used to believe like education is like okay, you must have education and then you get a good job, which may or may not be true depending on how you chart of your
May or
life.
may not be true. I'm gonna say it's like never true.
I think
Does that ever go to plan? Like whoever goes, I'm gonna study real hard and just perfectly get a good job. That's my dream job. I think. Are you? I'm curious. Firstly, the topic that you phrased here was work or study first. Yeah. So I'm sort of curious. Do you believe you should work or study first? What's your answer?
my answer now, because now I'm kind of well, okay, let's put a pre-context to this because I'm not like a good student. So my personal option was to get a bit more application first. And also, also because coming from the context of like late bloomers, so I figure out a lot later what I actually want to do. So then when it comes to the tertiary stage where you can choose your path, so I was a bit lost. And then I did chart off with like starting putting my getting my hands dirty on the job first, taking a few jobs and understanding what works for me. And then I pursue my degree and further education or upskilling. So I think that's my story, and it did help me a lot. But of course, then there are the pains of like being a late bloomer and having the education a bit later and stuff like that. That's why I find that it's quite interesting because like for people who really clearly knows what they want. For example, you love basketball or you're great at skiing, so you might chart off like since 5 years old towards that direction, right? And then like or become a protege. So then everyone's life is different, and it's definitely a very interesting topic to talk about because everyone has a different unique story and how they choose their path.
So just trying to clarify here. So your answer is you believe working first is probably best, and that's what you did, I guess, in when you were younger.
It depends on individual, but for me is I think it's good to have some hands on and
I feel like you want me to
you
say
know
something like there's a disclaimer here. We are not professional life advisors, so so if we say work first and
you
not
can
study, it's like
you can
don't call us in 10 years time and say my life sucks now. I have a terrible job because I listened to this podcast 10 years ago and you guys said to work first instead of study. Yeah, so I
that
guess at the end of the
influence.
day, your opinion, and your experience was you worked first, and do you believe that worked better? Would you have done it a different way around if you could go back now when you were 18, 20 years old? Would you have maybe studied first because you're telling me you worked first, correct?
Well, you're jumping the gun, but I can tell you the answer. I would think that within during my studying period, if I have a chance to like get like a real experience on the job itself, like a day of being a doctor, that kind of thing. So then it becomes like a real experience of, oh, okay, so this is my goal when I want to grow up. And then during my studying period, even as a student, I actually have like a chance to like be on like this kind of extra curriculum thing where you like try out the job. So then that will give like me like as a late boomer some idea of like, okay, is this really what I want? Because I think a lot of us like we study bioscience and then we come out do financial sector, or we study arts and then we do something else, or we study like
You
you
lost
know
me
what
at
I mean,
you
like
lost me at bioscience. Is that what you said? Is that the word you said, bioscience? Like,
yeah, because there are different specialization, right? So you pick one and then
uh-huh.
thinking that okay, that will be the course to go and then the qualification to become a biologist or like a scientist or like a doctor or like a pilot or stuff like that. So then I think a lot of us, at least the friends around me, most of us when we graduated, right, we end up in a different role, doing something very
You're
different
talking
from
about
what we
graduating
studied.
high school, or you're talking about graduating further study after high school?
I think both, because some graduate from like with a degree, some graduate with yeah, polytechnics, right?
Okay.
So then you have the applied practical learnings to start off jobs. Yeah. So but then for junior college over here is that you finish junior college and then you have to like finish
So
university
so
in a
maybe go back to
specialized.
that question I posed just before. Now, in hindsight, yeah, which is lovely, right? Hindsight is lovely. Would you still have done it the same way there, or would you have studied more when you were younger?
I would have more hands-on practical experience during my study period to find out more about my aspiration.
You're talking about like
So
part-time
it may
work, like looking for like part-time jobs. Yeah.
correct.
Okay. Okay.
So
Yep.
yeah, that's what I'm trying to get at. So like you don't have to be like quitting school and then like doing and then totally full time. So it's like even during your studies, you can proactively engage in like the industry to do some part time, and it is like the best way to kind of spy things out. Like have a feel of like, okay, is this the kind of work industry nature or environment I do want to do? Because some people are extrovert and then they choose to be curated and then they realize that okay, so maybe certain aspects are not that matching, and then maybe we can have a like realignment to the vocation that or like the aspiration we want to do. That
You
kind of
use some
thing.
really big words there, Ariel. I think were you not working at all when you were studying? Like younger when you were studying after high school? Did you not work at all in
My
Singapore?
experience,
Part-time
my
work,
experience
casual work?
is like, yeah, my experience is like we didn't have that mindset back then.
Uh-huh.
It was just kind of like, oh, yeah, it's vacation. I got nothing to do, so I'm just gonna do some part time to get a few dollars, and then like for snacks and stuff. But we don't we at least for me and the friends around me that time at our age, it's kind of like a little bit more innocent or ignorant. We just kind of go with the flow. Like we don't proactively consider like, oh, okay, so vacation I can actually think about like trying out this getting a part-time job that is in the industry. This is like some things that you consider only like when you grow up a little bit older. But whereas when in like below tertiary, when you're like in secondary school, primary school you probably can't work. So it's like secondary school, if you take part-time jobs, it's usually the basic part-time like event booth or stuff like that. So I think that's kind of like the mindset thing. Like, do you consider taking the part-time job as a chance to learn about the industry that you want to be in? So I think that's like what you said, right? On hindsight, it's a good chance.
It's
Or like in school, sometimes they have, like vacation curriculum or things like activities where like the class goes to experience some
well,
things like science center and stuff like that.
it's funny you're describing it that way. So, again, the fact that we're podcasting episode one here, yeah, of the Grasshoppers Club, is that we're trying something new here ourselves, right? This is our first podcast, And it's probably similar to what you're saying in regards to work, right? We're trying something here. I don't know how many episodes we're going to do. If we do well and we enjoy it, and hey, we get 1,000 people follow us, then we'd be really happy, and we'll probably keep doing what we're doing, right? And hopefully that continues to grow. Yeah. But we're trying something here that we're saying that we'll see whether we like this or not. We see whether we can do well at this or not. And I guess that's sort of what you're trying to say here. Is like your advice here, in the sense is to try different things. But what does that lead to? Does that lead to that now you know what to do because you try different things? Is that what you're trying to say?
Not really kind of advice, but like from personal experience, I guess. Like if I have known better, sort of thing. Yeah, and like you said, it's about having the first courage to actually think about the like we want to try something new, right? Like I think that's the first step, because for learners, even now to today, I'm also kind of learning new skills. It's always the first consideration, and then you thought about it, but then again you realize that you don't act on it, because the next step is to pluck out a little bit of courage to go for like a free class of for it, that kind of thing. So then it's like taking that first step is always hardest. It's like exercising, right? Like you can't keep up, but then it's always the first step out the door that keeps you running, like then you start doing your exercise. It's always the first step that you have to overcome. I guess it's the courage to try new things, like you say, uh, and also have like that support system around you, I guess, because when we are younger, we are just kids, and it does take like the people around us to kind of like inspire us and guide us, like, hey, what's your aspiration? Let's try out, like let's not think about it and then like study for it, but then try out that. Do you really like it? And if you like it, like how it works, and how better to chart or set goals towards it, like depending on based on your first impression or experience of that aspiration that you kind of have an encounter with, sort of. Yeah, so then you say, oh, okay, so maybe I need social skill on top of like good grades in math. You know what I mean? Like certain job requires certain things, certain vocation requires you to be of a certain nature. Then over time you kind of trial and error and stuff like that. So I think that really will help a lot, like in terms of personal growth. I feel if we can have that earlier, because for me it's really kind of sharing from my pain point. So I can't really give good advice as to like how you can live a successful life, but only from the fact that oh yeah, okay, I think these are some areas that probably I would tell my friends who are younger than me, like, oh, you can try do that,
Would
before
you
you.
would you say, because you obviously grew up in Singapore, yeah, that the question we're asking here in this episode is that work or study first? And would you say that your parents and your peers' parents, so all the people around you, your social group and your networks and friendships and stuff like that, they would have leaned towards definitely study first?
mm, Towards studies first, and I would also lean towards study first, because of it really okay. So let's set the kind of bar straight first. Like, firstly, once you've already done your research, right? Like you actually have a real experiential, you know one first time impression of that vocation that you try out, and then you get to know a little bit more about the real stuff, you know then you can decide, like, okay, so actually I need to finish all the way to like masters or professor, or do I actually, for this nature of aspiration vocation job that I want, actually I will fare better off if I actually do a poly, and then I do a few years of experience, and then I upskill. So it really depends on like which industry and which role, what do you who do you want to be, what do you want to become and stuff, and the nature of that requirements from you. So like if it's really more like application sort of role, then obviously you have to do hands-on, then obviously you do more hands-on first, and then you slowly scale up to
So
your
I, I,
professor and stuff.
I get what you're saying, and I think maybe go back a step though. It feels like there's a step that there's a question that needs to be potentially asked before the work or study question first. is really that a person needs to at least guess. Yeah, I'm going to say guess because we're talking about teenagers. Yeah, we're talking about when we were teenagers many years ago now. That so it's not necessarily like a knowledge. We don't necessarily know what we want to do, but at least we're guessing what we want to do. Because here's the catch you're sort of relating to. Like before, you said it'd be nice to do some hands-on stuff, have part-time casual
Yeah.
work, and try different industries and things like that. And then you mentioned something
Yeah.
like, oh, it'd be nice to like I think something like be a doctor or something like that. But you can't really just walk into a part-time casual doctor role and go, oh, yeah, I'll just poke around in someone's chest and body and stitch them up and oh, that was okay, that was fun, right? You need to do X amount of things to get to that point. But the thing is that
Correct.
you need to identify before that in your teenage years that, hey, I wouldn't mind being a doctor. I'm guessing I wouldn't mind being a doctor. And to do that, though, has some requirements because you can't simply just go do work experience as a, as a doctor surgery, and then turn into a doctor. You would have to go down the course of
Sure.
studying and then studying medicine and those
Yeah.
sort of, sort of
Mhm.
degrees,
Correct.
masters, etc., etc. So really,
Yeah.
maybe the first step here in this broader topic is that you at least need to get a starting point, but being
Yeah.
flexible enough to change it if that's not what you like to do. Because again, how many people do we know out there that started at a starting point but are not willing to change what they're doing now? Because a lot of it has to do with it's like they just comfortable with what they know. They also might say things like, "But I've invested so much of my life into what I've done already, and so on and so forth. I could not do something else, even though I don't
Right.
really like what I'm doing now anymore, or
Yeah.
whatnot." Or
I
does that
think that's a good point. That's a good point that you made. That's like the experiential part when you experience that shift in you, right? When you realize that okay, maybe I need to change, but I can't change, or should I change? That kind of thing. Is it too late to change and things like that? So then, to us, I guess you can agree, it's like it's never too late to change. You cannot be sacrificing more of your
Well,
lifetime
we're here
because
because we're hoping we'll become successful podcasters, right? So here's our career change. Let's become podcasters so we don't have to go necessarily do our
okay,
day-to-day
put
job
it this
anymore,
way, you
in a sense,
will
right?
what at your deathbed, right? You will never regret for things that you have done. You will only regret for things that you have not done. That's one of the grandmother that old wise
Yeah.
wisdom that tells me like go for it. Like even I say the foolish thing, she will like my grandmother would be like go for it because you never know. Like because I think it's about self exploration and understanding and when like learning about yourself as well, right? As you grow, because we all started from infancy and then we get to know ourselves, we get to know the people around us, and we start articulating and trying to shape the world around us, our own worldview and stuff like sort of like that kind of thing. And I think that it does help that if we have like that agility because we grew up always thinking like okay this path and this plan and then like study and then work and then like buy a house, no sorry wait, get married first and have kids or buy a house first and then get a car, stuff like that. It's always the standard Singapore dream looks very standard. So then
I feel like please share with me because I'm not Singaporean. What is the standard Singapore dream, please?
that will be the next topic, Fauzi. Like maybe we can do like a, how people always, we all know what's the American dream, but what's a Singapore dream, and then what's the Australian dream?
I like it. I like
Like
it.
that will
You're
be,
giving tidbits for the viewers to come back next episode because you're
yeah,
going to tell
yeah, that probably
everybody
be
what the standard Singaporean dream is. I want to know now myself.
so inject advertisement right for the next episode. Right. Sorry, digressed. Yeah. So then it's about being able, like again, it's like some courage to actually know sensibly when do you need to be agile, have the agility to shift. Maybe it's I have the altruistic nature to be a doctor, but maybe I also have, but maybe doctor as a surgeon is not really my thing. But then using the same altruistic nature and that calling towards like wanting to save people and stuff like that, you would chart off at a different vocation, like maybe a therapist or maybe like something else. So then broaden that options for yourself when that shift is required, when you realize that you have to have some readjustment because it will happen as we grow. Yeah, I feel
I,
that that is
I,
something valuable.
I'm curious. So obviously, you mentioned about earlier about your thoughts here is that trying different things is important, which I 100% agree with. In Australia, okay, in high school when I was growing up, okay, and they still do this now, yeah. We used to do something called work experience. So basically, when you're sort of finishing high school, the last few years of high school, when you're sort of 16, 17, just before you finish, you will go off. You get, I think, like 2 weeks or 1 week to go off and get a job somewhere, and you get paid like $5 a day, literally, and you get to try different things. Now, for example, you can't
Mm.
go be a doctor, but you go work at a doctor's clinic. Yeah, so you get a
Yeah,
bit of a
like an
feel of what
assistant.
what it would be like and so on and so forth to be there and how it
Yeah,
works and your day-to-day sort of responsibilities and what you would see and how that sort of works, which is a good I guess experience for a teenager, yeah, for someone young.
yeah.
I guess for myself, using my own examples there, I did 2 years of work experience. 1 year I was at a supermarket for about two
Hmm.
weeks and I was stacking shelves, yeah, putting all the food on the shelves, and you got to rotate the cans so the labels point out frontwards and blah blah blah. And I guess something I learned straight away after 2 weeks. And in all honesty, I probably did 1 week and I didn't go back the second week because that was
Yeah,
totally boring. Yeah, that was totally boring.
yes.
So I sort of something learned was like I don't really want to work in a supermarket because it was really really boring. Okay, my other work experience was I was working in a warehouse at a computer factory, like the computer parts and stuff like that. They're selling, importing and selling and stuff like that. And again, we were like just stacking, moving, loading stuff off the truck, put it in the corner
Mm.
here, put it back on the truck, do some deliveries to, I guess, resellers and things like that. And again, it's probably a similar thing. It was really boring. Yeah, I think I recall something like I said, "Hey, can I drive the truck?" But I was obviously like 17, so it was like no, because that to me would have been more interesting than obviously than just having to sit in the truck and go move boxes around for
Yeah.
my employer. Okay, and I guess look, that's probably the flip side of learning by process of elimination what you don't like to do. Yeah, so I was like, by the time I finished that, I've never really worked full time in a warehouse. In fact, I've never worked in a warehouse. Okay, and even though I've done a little bit of supermarket stuff here and there, that was because it was night shift stuff. So I was like, oh, why not? I'm free at night. Okay, but I guess by process of elimination, by the time I was like 18 years old, I was like, these are two jobs that I hate. And of course, there's another million jobs out there that I still never tried. But at least there's two that I know that I really did not like because it was so boring. I'm curious,
Mm.
in Singapore, do you guys get something similar like that, or is it sort of all really your own accord to try to get to the point of trying some different things so you know what you may or may not necessarily like?
Okay, also just kind of clarify further, like what I've already mentioned before, like kind of during vacation, sometimes some students do like part-time jobs, but not because they need the money, but because it's like, it's kind of like you get some extra cash to buy your favorite stuff
You're talking
or
about
Hotmart
vacation
or
time, like
something.
during your holidays.
Correct. So then there are like the curriculum one where you are when you need to choose a company that you want to apply for internship. That's part of the school system. And then but during vacation or during like days that you're not studying, some parents do allow their kids to do take some part-time jobs to gain some work experience, like experience reality first, sort of thing. And then like so they understand the sense of money and the sense of like work, a little bit general sense of things. So that's quite nice, but I think what's happening is that sometimes we just, oh, okay, we just take a whatever job that is like better rates. We don't use it as a chance to like, okay, let's explore something, a role that I may be closer to my industry or I may be interested in. But that is only for me, uh and my friends during our era. But maybe nowadays kids they actually do that, which is that would be a good thing lah. But then for me during that period of time, it was not as thoughtful. But I do feel like the Gen Z and the younger ones nowadays are actually doing that. They do take the free time to go and try out some new roles. Like for example, right, like game testers. Because they like games, they want to be a game designer, so they become a game test. Like like they what's the role? Part-time game testers like test out the games and then find bugs and stuff. So I think that is like
I didn't
super
realize a
cool.
teenager can just walk into a vacation job as a part-time game tester.
No, they will like post it. It's just like normal application, like, oh, we are hiring part-timers. You can be like a fresh grad, okay, or like still studying, vacation job, okay, that kind of thing. So I think it's the same everywhere. I think in Australia you have that too, right? Like everywhere is the same, I guess.
I guess,
So
I guess, let's just before you sort of go down this path further, I guess going back to that question though, and as you were talking, I sort of realized I think I already know the answer. Yeah, because obviously I'm not Singaporean, right? So I didn't go to school in Singapore. Okay, so that the question really is, to be specific, is that in Singapore, in the education system in high school, do you get time to experience different work? Is that yes
Within
or
the
no?
school
Within
system
school time,
itself,
during the school term.
no, no,
Okay,
no,
no,
no, no.
and I figured, and I actually thought of that was the answer I arrived at because if anything I've
Yeah,
learnt in Singapore, education time is for education. Don't
correct.
do anything
Education
else. In fact, don't breathe or eat or sleep. Just do education, and that
time,
is the priority, and that's okay.
right?
That's fine. So I was like,
Yeah.
no way in hell would that actually be built in because I guess in part when I describe my experience in
Hmm.
Australia, that work
Mhm.
experience period of 2 weeks is actually
It's part of
built
the
built
system.
within the school system. So you get 2 weeks
Oh, the
of
curriculum.
school to go. Yeah,
Oh,
that's the catch rate. You get 2 weeks of school to, you don't have to go to school, that you get to try work experience.
but I
And
think
that's,
we have that now, like, but in a maybe not in the exact way. But I do think that like the current education system we have right here have that now because I do remember reading something about like there are certain school that has a certain specific specialization. So that school is specialized in sports, right? So then they have curriculum incorporated that is doing sports. So that is like what you meant, but a bit different because it's still very close, tightly close to our curriculum. But there are school time that is actually allocated to do specialization stream.
for sports or for work?
Like if that school, so there are like clustering, right? So there are cluster of schools. So then for like most of the time it goes by the district or the region or something like that. Okay, so that's the context, right? So this group of schools around here, sometimes they compete with each other and stuff like that. And some cluster or some schools they actually are like and so-called endorsed or like have the specialization stream whereby you can gain grades credit from that specialization as long as it's a specialized school. So during public school, right, every all the schools are the same back then. So then all the grades are the same. You need to get from all your subject, geography, English, all that. And then like the only a little bit of grade that you get, right, is from your CCA, which is your extra curriculum. Like whether you're like a soccer team, you join a soccer team or something like that, right? But I think now we have what the system has right now is correct me if I'm wrong, guys. Sorry, I'm really very old, but I know a little bit. Okay, so there are schools that are specialized in certain things. For example, programming. So then they incorporate curriculum with programming time, so that you become a programmer because that is what the school
Mm,
specialize in.
mm, mm,
So it's the focus, right, for the school, even though it's a public school, but also have like the option of being specialized in a specific arena. So then there are like schools that specialize in sports, then they groom, sports athletes. And
mm,
then maybe some curriculum time is used in, during the for this specialized school.
mm.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I think that's something interesting that I heard so far from some of my friends. And I think that that is also one of the things that like what we've addressed earlier, right? It's like within the school compound itself, you have time to kind of experience the nature of your specialization. But what's lacking is the external environment, like being in the real environment. So then you have your excursion, you have like things that is outside of the curriculum where some school may or may not have, whereby you go to like the hospital for a day, that kind of thing. Yeah, that
Well,
kind of
I
thing.
love it. I love it. And I guess to sort of wrap up, I think from what we've talked about in the last half hour or so now, is that at the end of the day, trying different things helps you sort of understand what you works best for you, right? Because each person's different, isn't that it? I think that's the reality that we all have to understand, and whether you don't get that, you may not get that when you're like in your teenage years and when you're in your 20s, but I think you get that over time. Everyone works differently. We're not all the same sort of person. So, it's like whether you work first or you study first, it's whatever works for you. But I guess in summary, if you want to be a doctor, you probably got to go study first, right?
Yes, correct.
Correct, correct.
You have to
All
see
right.
the hard requirement and know where to cut off. Yeah. sort of thing.
All right. Well, until next podcast, and I'm looking forward to
Mhm.
hearing what is the standard Singaporean dream. I'm eagerly awaiting that as
Share with
surely
us your
anyone else
share
out
with us your
there.
story. Yes.
Hey,
Yeah, share with us your stories.
all
I'm
right.
sure there's a lot of outdated
In the
information because we're
comment
all
section,
old.
which is usually down, right? Because we're not sure where the like and subscribe button is at the point, but the comment section is usually down. So look, leave any comments you like, and we'll be back next week.